For more than 160 million years, dinosaurs dominated life on land. Their fossils appear on every continent. Some species grew longer than buses. Others carried armor, horns, or jaws, powerful enough to crush bone. One branch of dinosaurs even learned how to fly and eventually became the birds that still live today. On land, their influence spread almost everywhere, but the oceans tell a very different story. During the age of dinosaurs, the seas were filled with enormous predators. Some stretched more than 40 feet long, others carried eyes as large as grapefruits, built for hunting in the dim light of deep water. Yet none of them were dinosaurs. The rulers of the prehistoric oceans belonged to completely different reptile lineages. Their bodies sometimes look similar to dinosaurs at first glance: long jaws, powerful tails, rows of sharp teeth. But evolution had taken them down a very different path. This creates one of the strangest contrasts in the history of life. Dinosaurs spread across forests, plains, deserts, and river valleys. Some eventually conquered the skies. Their dominance lasted longer than the entire history of humanity, and yet the largest habitat on Earth remained beyond their reach. The oceans covered most of the planet during the age of dinosaurs. They held vast ecosystems, giant predators, and endless space for life to expand. But dinosaurs never truly ruled that realm. So why did evolution allow one group of animals to dominate nearly every landscape above the waves, but never the world beneath them? Tonight we explore one of the most surprising limits in dinosaur history. Before we dive into tonight's story, I always enjoy learning a little about the people listening. Are you someone who likes to put on a science story like this while relaxing? Or do you listen while doing something else like working, studying, or winding down after a long day? Tell me in the comments. And thank you to the Patreon members whose support helps make these videos possible. Now let's step into the ancient seas that dinosaurs could not conquer. Long before forests filled with towering reptiles and plains trembled beneath their footsteps, the planet itself was arranged in a shape almost unfamiliar to the modern eye. Land that now lies scattered across separate hemispheres once rested together in a single immense mass. Continents pressed against one another in a vast formation known as Pangaea, a supercontinent that stretched across enormous portions of the globe. Its interior reached so far from the surrounding oceans that many regions experienced deep seasonal dryness, while the distant coastlines curved around warm ancient seas that touched nearly every horizon. Across this immense landmass, the first dinosaurs gradually appeared and began their long presence on Earth. Their history would span roughly 230 million years to about 66 million years ago, a stretch of time so vast that entire mountain ranges rose and eroded away while their descendants continued to roam the surface. Over those ages, the arrangement of continents slowly shifted as the crust of the planet moved in slow, patient motions beneath them. Pangaea began to fracture, splitting into drifting land masses that would eventually become the continents familiar today. Coastlines lengthened, shallow waters spread inward, and new environments quietly emerged. The world during this time carried a warmth that wrapped much of the planet in relatively gentle climates. Ice rarely dominated the poles, and vast stretches of land supported forests, wetlands, and broad floodplains. Moist air drifted inland from surrounding seas, feeding ecosystems that stretched across immense distances. Rivers wound through lowlands, deltas spread outward into coastal basins, and fertile sediments gathered where freshwater met saltwater. In many regions, the oceans did not remain confined to distant shorelines. Sea levels often rose high enough to spill across continental interiors, forming enormous shallow seas that covered thousands of kilometers of land. These inland waters shimmered beneath the sunlight, creating quiet marine corridors between distant coastlines. One of the most remarkable of these would eventually divide a large portion of North America, forming a long tropical seaway that connected distant polar oceans. Shallow seas such as these became cradles of extraordinary biological richness. Sunlight reached easily through the clear water, nourishing vast populations of microscopic plankton drifting near the surface. These tiny organisms formed the foundation of complex marine food webs. Schools of fish fed upon them, larger predators hunted those fish, and still greater hunters patrolled the upper layers of the sea. Coral reefs and shelled invertebrates spread across warm seabeds, while squid like animals glided through open water with quiet precision. None of these communities appeared suddenly with the arrival of dinosaurs on land. Ocean life had already been evolving for hundreds of millions of years before the first dinosaur ever stepped onto the surface of the earth. Ancient seas had witnessed the rise and fall of armored fish, early sharks, and countless invertebrate lineages that shaped marine ecosystems long before reptiles began exploring the world above the waves. By the time dinosaurs expanded across continents, the oceans already held deeply established biological networks. Beneath the calm surfaces of those ancient waters, life had been refining the art of survival for ages beyond memory, building ecosystems whose complexity rivaled anything unfolding across the land. Long before the first dinosaurs stepped across warm floodplains or wandered through ancient forests, the oceans had already lived through ages of change, so immense that entire biological worlds had risen and vanished beneath the waves. The sea was never an empty stage waiting for new rulers. It was an ancient system already filled with life that had been adapting, competing, and evolving for hundreds of millions of years. In those distant eras, the earliest vertebrate animals began exploring the water in forms very different from anything alive today. Primitive fish glided through shallow seas, their bodies simple yet well suited to drifting currents and quiet pursuit of food. Over time, these early swimmers multiplied into a wide variety of shapes and lifestyles. Some grew powerful jaws lined with sharp teeth, allowing them to seize prey with sudden bursts of motion. Others remained smaller and more delicate, feeding on drifting organisms that floated through sunlit water. Among the most remarkable of these early marine hunters were the armored fish, creatures whose heads and bodies were protected by heavy plates of bone. Their thick natural armor formed a shield against rivals and predators, while their jaws opened with impressive force. In ancient seas, these formidable fish once dominated entire ecosystems, patrolling coastal waters with a quiet authority that lasted for millions of years. Their presence shaped the evolution of other animals that shared the same environments, pushing prey species to develop speed, camouflage, or defensive structures. Yet life in the oceans rarely remained stable for long. Earth's history carried repeated intervals of upheaval when climates shifted, sea levels changed, or catastrophic events swept across the planet. During these periods, large numbers of species vanished, leaving behind empty ecological roles that once supported thriving populations. In the quiet aftermath of such extinctions, the oceans began rebuilding themselves. New groups of animals slowly expanded into the spaces left behind. Evolution moved patiently, generation after generation, experimenting with fresh designs for swimming, hunting, and survival. Some lineages grew streamlined bodies that sliced efficiently through water. Others developed flexible tails that produced powerful thrust with each movement. Fins became longer and more stable, allowing animals to maneuver through currents with increasing precision. Over immense stretches of time, the oceans became laboratories of endless biological variation. Predators appeared with narrow snouts suited for catching slippery fish, while others evolved crushing jaws able to break shells and armor. Some hunters relied on speed, darting through open water in sudden chases, while others waited motionless among reefs or seabeds until prey drifted close enough to seize. By the time dinosaurs began establishing themselves across the continents, the oceans had already passed through countless evolutionary trials. The sea was not waiting for new arrivals to define its ecosystems. It was already crowded with specialized hunters, survivors shaped by ancient competition, and repeated cycles of extinction and renewal. Within this deep history lay an extraordinary diversity of body forms, each one reflecting a long experiment in aquatic life. The ocean had already explored many ways to move, breathe, hunt, and survive beneath the surface, forming complex ecosystems that would continue to evolve long after new creatures began walking the land above. Along the shifting margins where land met water, certain reptiles began drifting toward a different way of living. Shorelines offered abundant food, quiet lagoons sheltered small prey, and shallow coastal waters created a boundary where terrestrial animals could experiment with unfamiliar movements. Over long spans of time, a few lineages lingered at this edge, gradually spending more of their lives within the sea rather than upon the land. These early pioneers appeared well before dinosaurs came to dominate terrestrial environments. During the Permian period, and continuing into the Triassic, several reptile groups began adapting to aquatic life. Their first steps into the ocean were not sudden transformations, but slow adjustments shaped by countless generations. Individuals that could swim more effectively gained access to new sources of food, and those small advantages slowly accumulated. At first, these reptiles likely moved through water with the same limbs that carried them across land. Feet pushed against the surface, tails swayed from side to side, and bodies twisted awkwardly through currents. Yet, water demanded efficiency. Movement through such a dense medium required more than simple paddling. Animals that reduced resistance while increasing propulsion gained a clear advantage while pursuing prey beneath the surface. Gradually, their bodies began to change. Limbs that once supported weight on solid ground started broadening into flattened structures, better suited for pushing against water. Bones shortened and spread outward, forming paddle-shaped appendages capable of generating smooth, powerful strokes. These developing flippers allowed reptiles to glide with increasing stability, replacing the uneven motions of earlier swimmers. At the same time, their bodies grew more streamlined. Bulky forms that created drag slowly gave way to smoother outlines that slipped more easily through water. Long necks and flexible spines allowed controlled turns, while stronger tails contributed additional thrust during bursts of pursuit. Over generations, these adjustments transformed creatures that once walked along beaches into confident marine hunters. Despite these changes, one fundamental connection to the land remained. Like all reptiles, these animals still breathed air with lungs rather than extracting oxygen directly from the water. Even the most capable swimmers among them had to return regularly to the surface to inhale before descending again into deeper water. This rhythm of diving and resurfacing became a permanent feature of their lives. Air breathing placed subtle limits on how these reptiles moved and hunted. Their bodies needed to store sufficient oxygen to remain underwater for extended periods, yet they also required efficient lungs that could refill quickly during brief moments at the surface. Many species likely developed powerful respiratory muscles and large chest cavities to support these repeated dives. Over time, these adaptations allowed early marine reptiles to expand far beyond the sheltered coasts where their ancestors first explored shallow water. Some ventured into open seas, following schools of fish across broad distances. Others specialized in hunting near reefs or along continental shelves where marine life gathered in abundance. Through patient evolutionary change, the boundary between land reptile and ocean hunter gradually softened. Limbs reshaped into flippers, bodies streamlined for movement through water, and behavior adapted to a life balanced between the need for air and the demands of the sea. In these quiet transformations, the first reptiles of the ocean began establishing their place within marine ecosystems that had already been evolving for ages. The moment a land animal enters open water, the rules of movement change completely. Every motion becomes heavier, every step replaced by resistance pressing against the body from all directions. Air allows limbs to swing freely and bodies to move with relative ease, but water surrounds an animal with a medium far denser than the atmosphere above the land. Each stroke through it demands strength and careful control. For creatures built to walk or run, this difference creates an immediate challenge. Muscles designed to push against solid ground must instead drive limbs through thick currents. A simple step becomes a labor of propulsion. Without bodies shaped for efficient swimming, energy disappears quickly with each attempt to move forward. Over long distances, the cost becomes immense, placing severe limits on how far and how long a land-adapted animal can travel through open water. Buoyancy introduces another complication. Objects placed in water naturally rise or sink depending on their density, and living bodies must constantly manage this balance. Too much weight pulls an animal downward, forcing it to struggle upward toward air. Too much buoyancy pushes it toward the surface, making controlled diving difficult. Marine animals evolved structures that subtly adjust this balance, including body shapes, internal air spaces, and tissues that help maintain a steady position within the water column. Salt presents its own quiet challenge. Ocean water carries dissolved minerals that draw moisture from exposed tissues. Animals that live entirely on land are not built to handle constant contact with salt water, and without special physiological systems, they gradually lose internal water. Many marine species developed specialized glands or kidneys capable of removing excess salt while conserving precious fluids within their bodies. Temperature behaves differently in water as well. Heat moves through water far more quickly than through air, allowing surrounding currents to draw warmth from a body with surprising speed. Creatures living in marine environments often require insulation, large body mass, or metabolic adaptations that help them maintain stable internal temperatures despite the constant pull of colder water. Even the senses operate under altered conditions. Light scatters quickly beneath the surface, reducing visibility and muting colors as depth increases. Sounds travel farther in water than in air, yet direction becomes more difficult to judge. Animals that hunt in marine environments gradually evolved sensory systems suited for these conditions, including enlarged eyes for low light, pressure-sensitive skin capable of detecting vibrations, and refined hearing adapted to underwater acoustics. Finding food across the open ocean demands a combination of these abilities. Prey can appear suddenly and vanish just as quickly within a vast three-dimensional environment where there are few solid landmarks. Marine predators rely on speed, awareness of subtle water movements, and senses that allow them to locate other animals across considerable distances. Each of these challenges shapes the bodies of creatures that truly belong in the sea. Movement, balance, salt regulation, temperature stability, and sensory perception all require careful biological adjustments. Without these adaptations, the ocean remains an environment that resists conquest, allowing only those species whose bodies gradually transform to meet its demands to move through its depths with ease. Across the broad landscapes of the ancient world, Certain reptiles gradually adopted a posture unlike most of the creatures that came before them. Their bodies lifted higher above the ground, supported by limbs positioned directly beneath the torso rather than spreading outward to the sides. This quiet anatomical shift reshaped the way they moved through their environments. Instead of the slow, sprawling gait common among many earlier reptiles, these animals stepped forward with balance and efficiency, each stride carrying their weight with surprising stability. This upright stance allowed energy to travel more directly through the skeleton as muscles pushed against the ground. Walking required less effort, and running became far more controlled. Over time, this efficient design opened possibilities that earlier body plans struggled to achieve. Dinosaurs could travel long distances while searching for food, migrate across wide territories, and pursue prey with sustained motion across open landscapes. Their legs grew strong and column-like, capable of supporting bodies that increased steadily in size through evolutionary time. Some species remained small and agile, darting through vegetation or hunting smaller animals with quick bursts of speed. Others grew enormous, their immense frames carried by powerful limbs that distributed weight through thick bones and reinforced joints. These giants moved slowly but steadily across plains and floodplains, feeding on vast amounts of plant life that covered ancient ecosystems. Inside their bodies, another quiet advantage was developing. Many dinosaurs possessed respiratory systems that allowed air to move through their lungs with remarkable efficiency. Instead of drawing breath in and out along a single pathway, air likely flowed in a more continuous pattern, supported by internal air sacs connected throughout the skeleton. This arrangement delivered oxygen steadily to working muscles and may have allowed sustained activity without rapid exhaustion. With such efficient breathing came the possibility of higher metabolic activity than that seen in many earlier reptiles. Muscles could remain active for longer periods, supporting both endurance and rapid movement when necessary. This combination of posture, respiration, and muscular strength helped dinosaurs occupy a wide variety of ecological roles across the land. Some lineages developed an additional feature that subtly reshaped their relationship with the environment. Feathers began appearing among many species, first as simple filament-like coverings and later evolving into more complex structures. These coverings likely served as insulation, helping animals maintain stable internal temperatures during cooler periods or at night. Insulation allowed activity across a broader range of climates and conditions, further strengthening their ability to dominate terrestrial habitats. Together, these traits formed a powerful foundation for life on land. Upright locomotion reduced wasted energy, strong limbs carried bodies of remarkable size, and efficient lungs supported active movement across large territories. Insulating coverings help stabilize internal conditions, allowing dinosaurs to remain active when other reptiles slowed with falling temperatures. Across forests, plains, and river valleys, this combination of anatomical advantages allowed dinosaurs to thrive for immense spans of time. Ecosystems gradually arranged themselves around their presence, with herbivores shaping vegetation and predators following the movements of their prey. The land became a world where their body plan functioned with remarkable success, refined through millions of years of gradual evolutionary adjustment. Where rivers widened into quiet channels and wetlands spread across low-lying plains, the boundary between land and water created environments filled with opportunity. Muddy banks, tangled vegetation, and slow currents attracted animals from many directions. Dinosaurs were no exception. Although their bodies remained designed for life on land, Certain species spent much of their time near these watery landscapes, taking advantage of food sources that gathered along shorelines. Fossil discoveries reveal that many dinosaurs regularly hunted fish. Their teeth, jaws, and skull shapes often carry subtle clues preserved in stone. Some species developed long, narrow snouts lined with slender teeth that worked almost like natural traps for slippery prey. These jaws could snap shut with sudden precision as fish moved through shallow water. The overall form of these skulls suggests animals that watched river surfaces carefully, ready to strike the moment movement appeared beneath the ripples. Tracks preserved in ancient sediments also hint at this shoreline lifestyle. Footprints sometimes appear along the margins of prehistoric lakes or riverbeds, forming patterns that suggest animals pacing through shallow water or walking slowly across wet mud. These traces offer quiet evidence that dinosaurs frequently visited these habitats, moving between dry ground and flooded lowlands as they searched for food. Some plant-eating dinosaurs likely thrived in these damp environments as well. Hadrosaurs, often recognized for their broad duck-like snouts, appear in fossil deposits associated with wetlands and coastal plains. Their teeth formed complex grinding surfaces capable of processing large amounts of vegetation, including plants that grew in marshy soil or along the edges of shallow water. Living near wetlands may have provided reliable access to abundant plant life, especially in regions where seasonal floods enrich the ground with nutrients. The anatomy of certain predatory dinosaurs further suggests a lifestyle closely tied to aquatic hunting. In some lineages, the skull stretched forward into elongated jaws filled with conical teeth. These teeth lacked the sharp slicing edges common in many land predators, instead forming smooth spikes that helped grip struggling fish without breaking easily. This design resembles the feeding strategy seen in modern crocodilians, which wait quietly near the water's edge before lunging forward with sudden force. Despite these adaptations, the bodies of these dinosaurs still carried the fundamental structure of terrestrial animals. Their legs remained suited for walking and running across solid ground, and their balance relied on hips and tails that functioned best on land. While they could wade through water or swim short distances, their skeletons did not yet display the sweeping transformations seen in reptiles that fully embraced marine life. These shoreline dwellers reveal something important about the flexibility of dinosaur evolution. Certain species clearly explored the ecological possibilities offered by rivers, lakes, and coastal wetlands. They learned to hunt fish, forage among aquatic plants, and move comfortably through damp landscapes that blended land and water together. Yet, even in these environments, dinosaurs remained visitors rather than permanent residents of the aquatic world. Their adaptations allowed them to approach the water's edge and exploit its resources, but the deeper transformations required for a fully marine existence had not yet taken shape within their lineage. Among the many dinosaurs that approached the water's edge, one species stands apart with a body that hints at a far deeper relationship with rivers and coastal waterways. Its fossils reveal an animal unlike the familiar image of swift land predators. The skull stretches forward into a long, narrow snout, the jaws filled with smooth, conical teeth shaped less for slicing flesh and more for gripping, struggling prey. This dinosaur is known as Spinosaurus, a creature that lived roughly 95 million years ago during the Cretaceous period. The shape of its head immediately suggests a hunter adapted for catching fish. The elongated jaws resemble the feeding structures of animals that seize slippery prey from water. Each tooth forms a pointed spike designed to hold rather than cut. Along the snout, small sensory openings likely helped detect movements in water, allowing the animal to react quickly when fish passed nearby. These features paint the outline of a predator that spent much of its time watching the surface of rivers or shallow channels. Evidence preserved within the bones of Spinosaurus provides further hints about its habits. Chemical analysis of fossilized remains suggests that this dinosaur spent a considerable portion of its life in aquatic environments. Certain elements absorbed during life reflect repeated contact with water, leaving subtle traces that researchers can still detect millions of years later. These signatures imply that Spinosaurus moved frequently through rivers or coastal waters rather than remaining strictly on dry ground. The tail of this animal reveals another remarkable detail. Unlike the stiff balancing tails seen in many land-dwelling theropods, the tail of Spinosaurus appears tall and flexible, with elongated vertebrae that supported a broad fin-like shape. When moving through water, such a tail could sweep from side to side, producing strong propulsion, much like the swimming motion seen in many aquatic vertebrates. This structure suggests a dinosaur capable of moving through water with far greater efficiency than most of its relatives. Together, these features form the picture of an animal that blurred the boundary between land predator and aquatic hunter. Spinosaurus may have waded through river channels, submerged portions of its body while stalking prey, and used powerful strokes of its tail to maneuver through deeper water. Fish likely formed a significant part of its diet, though it may also have captured other animals that gathered along the edges of waterways. Even so, Spinosaurus still carried many characteristics of a terrestrial dinosaur. Its limbs retained structures suited for movement on land, and its lungs required regular access to air above the surface. The skeletal framework remained closely tied to the anatomy shared by other large theropods. While it clearly explored aquatic habitats more extensively than most dinosaurs, it did not possess the fully streamlined body or paddle-shaped limbs that define reptiles entirely adapted to marine life. Spinosaurus therefore occupies a fascinating position in the story of dinosaur evolution. It shows how far certain species could move toward aquatic lifestyles without completing the full transition into the ocean. Its body reveals a series of experiments in hunting within water while still remaining anchored to the land-based heritage of its lineage. The structure of a body carries the memory of the environment in which it first evolved. Bones, joints, and muscles reflect long histories of movement, each feature shaped by countless generations adapting to particular landscapes. For dinosaurs, that history was written across dry ground, through forests, plains, and river valleys, where walking and running formed the foundation of survival. Their skeletons reveal this heritage clearly. The hips of dinosaurs supported an upright posture that balanced the body directly above the legs. Strong thigh bones connected to powerful muscles designed to push against solid earth, allowing steady walking and bursts of speed across open terrain. Joints aligned to carry weight vertically through the skeleton, distributing the immense mass of large species while maintaining stability. These structures formed a remarkably successful system for life on land. Yet this same design created limits once water became the primary environment. Fully aquatic animals rely on bodies shaped for continuous propulsion through dense fluid, instead of legs bearing weight beneath the body. Many marine swimmers use flippers or fins that push against water with broad strokes. Their spines often flex in rhythmic waves that generate forward motion, while their limbs transform into flattened surfaces that act more like paddles than walking legs. Dinosaur anatomy followed a different architectural plan. Their hind limbs were arranged to support weight and produce forward steps rather than sweeping motions through water. The hips anchored muscles that stabilized walking rather than generating the side-to-side undulation common in many aquatic swimmers. While certain species could wade or paddle in shallow environments, The deeper structural framework of their bodies remained tied to terrestrial locomotion. Transforming such a body plan into a fully marine form would require extensive evolutionary change. Limbs would need to shorten and broaden into flippers, joints would shift to allow new ranges of movement, and the overall body would gradually reshape into a streamlined form that minimized resistance through water. These transformations do not occur quickly. They emerge slowly across immense stretches of time as small variations accumulate generation after generation. For such changes to unfold, strong evolutionary pressure must encourage the transition. A population must benefit consistently from spending more time in water than on land, allowing natural selection to favor individuals whose bodies move more efficiently through aquatic environments. Over many generations, those advantages gradually reshape anatomy. During the long history of dinosaurs, conditions on land remained highly favorable for their existing design. Their bodies allowed them to dominate terrestrial ecosystems with extraordinary success. Food sources were abundant across forests and floodplains, and predators and herbivores alike filled ecological roles that supported stable populations. With such effective adaptations already in place, the incentive to abandon land entirely may have remained weak. Meanwhile, the oceans were already inhabited by reptiles, whose ancestors had begun adapting to marine life far earlier. These lineages had centuries of evolutionary momentum, guiding them deeper into aquatic environments. Their bodies continued refining the shapes best suited for swimming, diving, and hunting beneath the surface. Within this balance of evolutionary history and environmental opportunity, dinosaurs remained primarily creatures of the land. Their bodies carried the legacy of terrestrial movement, and the oceans continued evolving along paths shaped by other branches of life that had entered the water long before. Long before many of the famous marine reptiles of the later dinosaur age appeared, another lineage had already taken the path into open water and followed it with remarkable success. Their bodies reveal a story of transformation shaped entirely by life beneath the surface. These animals are known as ichthyosaurs, a name that reflects their striking resemblance to fish, though their ancestry traces back to reptiles that once walked upon land. The earliest ichthyosaurs emerged during the Triassic period, not long after earlier reptiles had begun experimenting with aquatic lifestyles. Over time, their anatomy shifted in ways that reveal a complete commitment to life in the ocean. Their bodies narrowed into smooth, streamlined forms that reduced resistance while moving through water. The limbs that once supported weight on land gradually transformed into stiff flippers, broad and paddle-like, capable of steering and stabilizing the body during swift motion. Seen in profile, an ichthyosaur carries a silhouette that appears surprisingly familiar. The shape resembles the outline of modern dolphins, with a tapered snout, rounded body, and a powerful tail that produced forward thrust. This similarity did not arise through shared ancestry, but through the repeated influence of water itself. Over long evolutionary spans, different animals that live in the ocean often arrive at similar body shapes because those forms move efficiently through dense fluid environments. The tail of an ichthyosaur formed the primary engine of movement. A strong vertical fin allowed powerful strokes that propelled the animal forward through open water with speed and control. Combined with flippers that guided direction, these reptiles could travel considerable distances while searching for prey across vast marine landscapes. One of their most remarkable features appears in the skull. The eyes of many ichthyosaurs grew extraordinarily large, among the biggest eyes known in the vertebrate fossil record. These enlarged organs likely allowed the animals to gather faint light in deeper waters where sunlight struggled to penetrate. Within dim marine depths, such sensitivity would have offered a significant advantage when locating fish or squid moving through shadowed water. Some species reached impressive lengths, growing larger than many land predators of their time. Fossil evidence suggests that certain individuals extended well beyond 50 feet from snout to tail. Such size would have placed them among the dominant hunters of early Mesozoic oceans, capable of capturing a wide range of prey across different depths. Their reproductive strategy also reveals how fully adapted they had become to marine life. Unlike reptiles that returned to land to lay eggs, ichthyosaurs gave birth to live young directly in the water. Fossil specimens preserve extraordinary moments of this process, showing embryos positioned within the body of the mother. The young emerged tail first during birth, an arrangement that helped prevent drowning while they entered the surrounding sea. Through these adaptations, ichthyosaurs became among the first reptiles to master the open oceans. Their streamlined bodies, powerful swimming structures, sensitive vision, and fully aquatic reproduction allowed them to thrive in marine environments that demanded specialized design. Over time, they would spread widely through ancient seas, becoming a defining presence within the marine ecosystems that developed alongside the age of dinosaurs. Far from the shorelines where earlier reptiles first entered the water, another group of marine hunters moved through ancient seas with a form unlike anything seen before. Their bodies carried a striking balance of proportions, compact at the center yet extending forward into a neck that seemed almost improbably long. These animals are known as plesiosaurs, a lineage of marine reptiles that flourished through the Jurassic and Cretaceous oceans. The first impression of a plesiosaur often comes from that extraordinary neck. In some species, it stretched far beyond the length of the body itself, formed from a chain of numerous vertebrae linked together with surprising flexibility. This elongated structure allowed the head to move through water with subtle precision, while the rest of the body remained steady. Rather than lunging forward with the entire torso, the animal could guide its small skull quietly toward nearby prey. At the front of this long neck sat a relatively narrow head filled with pointed teeth designed for gripping slippery animals. Fish and soft-bodied cephalopods likely formed a major part of their diet. Within open water, these predators may have moved slowly among schools of prey, extending their necks forward with careful control before snapping their jaws shut in a swift motion. The body behind this delicate-looking neck carried a different kind of power. Plesiosaurs possessed four strong flippers arranged around a broad torso. Each limb had transformed into a flattened paddle supported by sturdy bones. Unlike many swimmers that rely primarily on a tail for propulsion, these reptiles moved through the water with coordinated strokes of their flippers. The motion may have resembled an underwater form of flight, with the limbs sweeping through wide arcs that generated forward movement and lift. This four-flippered design allowed remarkable maneuverability. By adjusting the rhythm of each limb, a plesiosaur could glide smoothly through the water column, change direction with grace, or rise toward the surface with gentle strokes. The body itself remained relatively stable, while the flippers performed the work of propulsion. Throughout the Jurassic and continuing into the Cretaceous period, plesiosaurs spread across many of the world's oceans. Fossils discovered in marine sediments across distant continents reveal that these reptiles thrived for tens of millions of years. Their presence appears in shallow coastal seas, as well as deeper marine environments where fish and squid were plentiful. Within these ecosystems, plesiosaurs occupied an important role as mid to upper level predators. Their long necks allowed them to approach prey without alerting entire schools of fish, while their flippers provided the agility needed to pursue animals that attempted to escape. The design balanced stealth and mobility in a way that proved highly effective within marine environments. Some species carried necks composed of dozens of vertebrae, forming graceful arches that extended far beyond the body. In certain cases, the neck length exceeded the rest of the animal entirely, creating silhouettes that seemed almost surreal when reconstructed from fossil remains. Through this distinctive combination of anatomy, plesiosaurs became one of the defining inhabitants of ancient oceans. Their elongated necks, powerful flippers, and steady presence across vast spans of time illustrate another pathway through which reptiles adapted completely to life within the sea. Within the same broad family that produced the long-necked hunters of earlier seas, another form emerged that followed a very different path. Instead of delicate proportions and extended necks, these reptiles carried compact bodies built around enormous heads and crushing jaws. They are known as plesiosaurs, close relatives of the long-necked plesiosaurs, yet shaped for a far more forceful style of hunting. At first glance, the difference becomes immediately clear. The neck that once stretched gracefully outward in their relatives is shortened and thickened, bringing the skull close to the powerful torso. This arrangement placed the head directly in line with the body's momentum, allowing the animal to drive forward through the water with explosive strength. The skull itself grew massive, forming a broad triangular structure filled with large muscles that powered the bite. Inside those jaws stood rows of formidable teeth, each one shaped like a sturdy cone. Unlike the slicing teeth seen in many land predators, these were designed to grip rather than cut. Their smooth surfaces helped prevent breakage when clamping down on struggling prey, while their pointed tips sank securely into flesh. Once seized within this powerful bite, escape would have been extremely difficult. The body behind the skull remains supported by four strong flippers, similar to those of other plesiosaur relatives. These limbs worked together in coordinated strokes that propelled the animal forward with impressive speed. While the head delivered the force of the attack, the flippers provided the agility needed to pursue prey across open water. The combination of propulsion and bite strength created a predator capable of dominating its surroundings. Many pliosaurs grew to remarkable sizes. Fossil discoveries indicate that certain species exceeded 35 feet in length, placing them among the most formidable hunters of their time. Their skulls alone could reach astonishing proportions, sometimes measuring several meters from snout to jaw hinge. Such scale allowed them to target large prey that smaller marine reptiles could not easily capture. Within ancient marine ecosystems, these reptiles likely occupied the role of apex predators. Fish, squid, and even other marine reptiles may have fallen within their range of prey. Bite marks discovered on fossil bones hint at violent encounters beneath the surface, suggesting that these animals were capable of confronting formidable rivals within their environment. The design of the pliosaur body reflects a hunting strategy built around sudden power. Instead of approaching prey with subtle movements of an elongated neck, these reptiles relied on the momentum of their entire mass. A rapid surge forward, driven by strong flipper strokes, could close the distance between predator and prey in moments. The massive jaws then delivered a decisive grip that few animals could resist. Across Jurassic and early Cretaceous seas, pliosaurs represented one of the most formidable expressions of reptilian adaptation to marine life. Their short necks, immense skulls, and muscular bodies formed a design centered on strength and dominance within the oceanic food chain. In the vast underwater landscapes where many creatures hunted and fled, these powerful predators moved with a presence that few others could challenge. Toward the later chapters of the dinosaur age, a new lineage of marine reptiles began expanding across the world's oceans. Their rise unfolded gradually within the warm seas of the Cretaceous period, where changing coastlines and broad inland waterways created environments rich with marine life. Within these waters appeared animals that carried the distant ancestry of land-dwelling lizards, yet whose bodies had reshaped themselves for powerful movement through the sea. These predators are known as mosasaurs. The skeletal structure of mosasaurs reveals a heritage connected to the same broader reptile family that includes modern monitor lizards. Early members of this lineage likely lived along coastlines, moving between land and shallow water while hunting fish or other small prey. Over many generations, their anatomy shifted in response to increasing time spent within marine environments. Their limbs transformed into broad flippers capable of guiding the body through water with steady control. At the same time, the tail grew longer and stronger, eventually developing a deep vertical fin that produced the primary force of propulsion. With each sweeping motion, this tail pushed against the surrounding water, driving the animal forward through the sea with impressive speed. The body itself lengthened into a streamlined shape that reduced resistance during swimming. Flexible vertebrae allowed the spine to bend smoothly as the tail moved from side to side, creating a wave of motion that traveled along the body toward the powerful tail fin. This design produced swift bursts of acceleration when pursuing prey. Some mosasaurs grew to remarkable sizes. Certain species extended beyond 50 feet in total length, placing them among the largest marine predators of the late Cretaceous oceans. Their elongated skulls carried rows of sharp teeth set firmly within strong jaws. These teeth curved slightly backward, forming an effective trap that prevented captured prey from slipping free once seized. Within ancient marine ecosystems, mosasaurs hunted a wide range of animals. Fish likely formed a common part of their diet, along with marine turtles that shared the same waters. Fossil evidence also suggests that these reptiles sometimes attacked other marine reptiles, including smaller members of their own group. Their role within the ocean food chain often placed them near the top as dominant hunters. Remarkably, detailed discoveries provide glimpses into the meals these animals consumed. In some fossil specimens, preserved stomach contents still contain the remains of prey swallowed millions of years ago. Fragments of fish bones, pieces of turtle shell, and other marine animals appear within the rib cages of these fossils, offering direct evidence of the diverse diets these predators maintained. The spread of mosasaurs across late Cretaceous seas created what might be described as an empire of marine hunters. From coastal shallows to deeper offshore waters, their presence became a defining feature of marine ecosystems during the final chapters of the dinosaur age. Their powerful tails, strong jaws, and adaptable feeding strategies allowed them to thrive in environments that demanded speed, strength, and keen awareness of prey moving through the water around them. Through these adaptations, mosasaurs rose to become some of the most formidable rulers of the ancient oceans. Their success illustrating yet another path through which reptiles transformed themselves to master life beneath the waves. Beneath the surface of ancient seas, marine reptiles moved through water with bodies shaped for swimming and hunting, yet they carried within them a quiet reminder of their ancestry on land. Unlike fish that draw oxygen directly from water through gills, these reptiles depended on lungs. Every dive beneath the surface therefore existed within a rhythm that connected the depths of the ocean with the open air above. At intervals, each animal had to rise from the water to breathe. The motion was likely smooth and practiced, the body angling upward as the surface approached. A brief moment followed when the nostrils or snout broke into the air, allowing the lungs to fill before the animal descended again into the sea. This pattern repeated countless times throughout a lifetime, forming a natural cycle between the underwater world and the sky above. Lung capacity played a crucial role in this lifestyle. Many marine reptiles developed large internal spaces within the chest where the lungs could expand fully. When filled with air, these lungs carried enough oxygen to sustain the animal during extended dives. Muscles and tissues throughout the body relied on that stored oxygen as the reptile swam through deeper water in search of prey. Some species likely enhanced this ability through specialized strategies for oxygen storage. Blood rich in hemoglobin allowed more oxygen to circulate through the body, while certain muscles contained proteins capable of holding oxygen until it was needed. These internal reserves extended the time a predator could remain submerged before returning to the surface. During a dive, the body probably slowed its consumption of oxygen in subtle ways. The heart rate may have decreased, conserving the supply stored within the lungs and bloodstream. Blood flow shifted toward essential organs and working muscles, while less critical systems reduced their activity. These physiological adjustments allowed marine reptiles to remain underwater far longer than land animals could manage. Such control over breathing created important advantages while hunting. Many prey species depended on sudden bursts of speed or quick changes of direction to escape danger. A predator that could remain hidden beneath the surface without constant need to breathe gained valuable moments of stealth. Fish or squid moving through the water might never notice the approaching hunter until it was already within striking distance. Yet, no matter how effective these adaptations became, the need for air always remained. Eventually, each marine reptile had to return to the surface, lifting its head above the waves for another breath. The ocean allowed these animals to move with grace and power beneath the water, but their lungs preserved a connection to the atmosphere that had shaped their ancestors long before. In this balance between air and water, marine reptiles found a way to thrive within environments that demanded both aquatic skill and terrestrial heritage. Their bodies carried the memory of land even as their lives unfolded across the vast and shifting landscapes of the sea. Far beneath the shifting surfaces of ancient seas, life organized itself into quiet layers of dependence. Each creature existed within a network where survival relied on countless other forms of life, some so small they drifted unnoticed through the water. These intricate relationships form the foundation of marine ecosystems, guiding the movement of energy through every level of the ocean world. At the base of this living structure floated vast populations of microscopic plankton. These tiny organisms drifted with currents near the sunlit upper layers of the sea, absorbing light and nutrients from the surrounding water. Though individually almost invisible, together they formed enormous clouds of life that nourished nearly every other creature in the ocean. Their constant reproduction created a steady supply of energy that flowed upward through the food chain. Small fish and delicate invertebrates gathered in these plankton-rich waters. Some filtered the drifting organisms directly from the water using specialized mouthparts or fine gill structures. Others captured individual plankton with quick snaps of tiny jaws. Schools of these small animals moved through the upper layers of the ocean, feeding constantly as they followed currents that carried their microscopic food. In turn, these creatures became prey for larger hunters. Medium-sized fish, swift squid, and other agile predators moved among the schools with sudden bursts of speed. Their bodies were built for rapid pursuit, allowing them to dart through the water in quick attacks that scattered smaller animals in every direction. The ocean at this level remained filled with motion, a continuous dance of pursuit and escape. Above this busy layer of activity swam the great marine reptiles that had come to dominate prehistoric seas. Plesiosaurs glided through open water with steady strokes of their flippers, their long necks extending quietly toward nearby prey. Pliosaurs surged forward with immense jaws, prepared to seize large animals in powerful bites. Later in time, mosasaurs patrolled vast stretches of ocean, using strong tails to accelerate toward fish, turtles, or other reptiles moving through their territory. These predators occupied the highest levels of the marine food chain. Their survival depended on the steady presence of animals beneath them in the ecological hierarchy. Every large hunter ultimately relied on the invisible productivity of plankton drifting far below the notice of most creatures. The relationships within these ancient oceans formed a delicate balance. A flourishing population of microscopic organisms supported schools of small fish, which in turn sustained larger predators. Each level influenced the stability of those above and below it. Changes in temperature, ocean chemistry, or nutrient availability could ripple through this system, altering the abundance of life across wide marine regions. Despite the immense size of the reptiles that dominated the upper layers of these ecosystems, their existence remained tied to the smallest forms of life in the sea. The quiet drifting plankton formed the hidden engine of the ocean, powering a vast network of feeding relationships that extended upward through every scale of marine existence. Within this layered system of energy and survival, prehistoric oceans supported a remarkable diversity of creatures, each connected through the invisible threads of an ancient and enduring food web. Across certain periods of the dinosaur age, parts of the continents did not remain dry land at all. Instead, broad regions lay beneath quiet expanses of shallow ocean where waves moved gently across submerged plains that had once supported forests and rivers. These temporary seas formed when global sea levels rose high enough to spill across continental interiors, transforming low-lying landscapes into wide marine corridors. One of the most remarkable of these ancient waterways extended through the heart of what would one day become North America. Known today as the Western Interior Seaway, this vast body of water divided the continent into eastern and western land masses for millions of years. Rather than forming a narrow channel, it spread outward across enormous distances, stretching for thousands of miles from polar regions in the north to warmer southern oceans. The waters of this inland sea remained relatively shallow across much of its extent. Sunlight easily reached the seabed in many areas, allowing marine ecosystems to flourish. Nutrients carried from surrounding rivers enriched the water, supporting dense populations of microscopic life that formed the foundation of thriving food webs. Fish moved through these warm shallows in great numbers, joined by squid-like animals and countless smaller creatures that filled every available ecological niche. Within these rich waters swam predators drawn by the abundance of prey. Fossil discoveries from ancient seabeds reveal a remarkable variety of animals that inhabited the western interior seaway. Sharks patrolled the open waters, their streamlined bodies cutting silently through currents as they searched for fish or wounded animals. Some species grew to impressive size, leaving behind teeth that remain scattered through marine sediments today. Marine turtles also glided through these waters, their broad flippers carrying them steadily through the shallow sea. Unlike their land-dwelling relatives, these reptiles spent much of their lives swimming across coastal regions and open channels, surfacing occasionally for air before descending once more into the depths. Above all, the inland sea supported some of the great marine reptiles that defined prehistoric oceans. Plesiosaurs, with their long necks and graceful flippers, moved through the water in search of fish and squid. Pliosaurs and later mosasaurs hunted with greater force, their powerful jaws allowing them to capture larger prey across the open sea. These predators traveled through the interior seaway as easily as through coastal oceans, connecting distant marine habitats through their movements. Sediments slowly accumulated along the floor of this ancient waterway, preserving the remains of animals that lived and died within its currents. Over immense spans of time, these layers hardened into stone, capturing fossils that would eventually reveal the extraordinary life that once occupied this inland ocean. The western interior seaway illustrates how dramatically the geography of Earth has changed through deep time. Regions that today hold grasslands and mountains once lay beneath warm marine waters filled with sharks, turtles, and giant reptiles. Within these quiet seas, entire ecosystems flourished far from the open ocean, shaping a chapter of marine history written across the very center of a continent. Drifting through ancient oceans alongside the great reptiles were animals whose bodies followed an entirely different design. They moved without bones, without armor of scales or plates, guided instead by flexible limbs and soft tissues shaped for life in open water. These creatures belong to the cephalopods, a group of marine animals whose intelligence, agility, and unusual anatomy made them some of the most successful hunters of prehistoric seas. Among the most recognizable of these animals were the Ammonites. Their coiled shells formed elegant spirals that floated through ancient waters in extraordinary abundance. Each shell contained a series of internal chambers that helped regulate buoyancy, allowing the animal inside to rise or sink through the water column with subtle control. From the open end of the spiral extended a cluster of tentacles that could grasp prey drifting within reach. The oceans of the dinosaur age contained immense populations of ammonites. Fossil deposits often reveal their shells scattered through ancient marine sediments in astonishing numbers. Their success came from a combination of rapid reproduction and adaptability, allowing them to occupy many ecological roles across different depths and environments. Some species remained small and delicate, while others grew far larger, their shells forming impressive spirals that drifted through the sea. Although protected by their shells, ammonites were not passive creatures. Their tentacles likely captured small animals, guiding prey toward a beak-like mouth hidden within the soft body. With jet propulsion, they could also move through water by forcing jets of water from a siphon, allowing them to dart away from danger or pursue food across short distances. Alongside these shelled cephalopods lived relatives whose bodies carried no external protection at all. Squid-like animals evolved, streamlined forms built for speed and agility. Their muscular mantles forced water through narrow openings, propelling them forward with bursts of rapid motion. Long arms and tentacles extended outward to seize prey, while keen eyes detected movement in the surrounding water. Some of these squid-like predators grew to impressive sizes. Though their soft bodies rarely fossilized well, certain remains suggest that some species reached substantial lengths. Their presence would have added another layer of complexity to marine ecosystems already filled with swift fish and powerful reptiles. These cephalopods played an important role within ancient food webs. Many served as active hunters of smaller animals, yet they also became vital prey for larger predators. Marine reptiles likely encountered them frequently while searching for food across open seas. The tentacles of ammonites and squid may have struggled in the grasp of plesiosaurs or vanished into the jaws of pliosaurs and mosasaurs that prowled the upper levels of the marine food chain. Through their abundance and versatility, cephalopods helped sustain the broader ecosystems of prehistoric oceans. Their shells drifted through currents, Their tentacles captured prey, and their swift bodies flashed through the water in sudden movements of pursuit and escape. Within the layered structure of ancient seas, these remarkable animals formed a living bridge between smaller drifting life and the giant predators that ruled the waters above them. Long before reptiles began mastering life in the oceans, another lineage of predators had already been patrolling the seas for vast stretches of time. Sharks belonged to an ancient branch of vertebrate life that appeared hundreds of millions of years earlier, evolving quietly through successive ages of changing oceans. By the time dinosaurs began spreading across the continents, these cartilaginous hunters were already deeply established within marine ecosystems. Unlike many other fish, sharks carried skeletons made primarily of cartilage rather than solid bone. This lighter, internal structure allowed their bodies to remain flexible while moving through water, supporting swift turns and powerful bursts of speed. Their streamlined forms had been refined across immense spans of evolutionary history, producing predators capable of pursuing prey with remarkable efficiency. Throughout the dinosaur age, sharks continued diversifying into numerous species that occupied different roles within marine environments. Some remained relatively small, feeding on fish, invertebrates, or drifting organisms near coastal waters. Others grew far larger, their bodies lengthening into formidable shapes that dominated the mid-levels of the ocean food chain. Fossil discoveries often preserve the teeth of these animals, revealing clues about their size and feeding habits. Shark skeletons rarely fossilize well because cartilage decays more quickly than bone, yet their teeth were constantly replaced throughout life and often sank to the seafloor. Over time, these teeth became buried in marine sediments, leaving behind an abundant record of ancient shark populations. Many of these teeth display thick bases and sharply serrated edges, indicating bites capable of gripping and cutting through flesh with great force. Even individual teeth sometimes measure several inches in length, suggesting animals that possessed enormous jaws powered by strong muscles. Such structures allowed certain species to capture large prey, including fish, turtles, and other marine animals moving through prehistoric seas. Some prehistoric sharks reached impressive sizes that rivaled many marine reptiles. Their long bodies moved with steady, confident motion through warm waters rich with life. Though they lacked the dramatic skeletons of reptiles like plesiosaurs or mosasaurs, these sharks played an equally important role as hunters within marine ecosystems. Competition occasionally arose between these different predators. Where food sources overlapped, sharks and marine reptiles may have pursued the same prey across open waters or shallow seas. Fossil remains sometimes preserve evidence of these encounters, including bite marks that hint at struggles between large marine animals. Despite this competition, sharks continued thriving across the oceans throughout the entire span of the dinosaur era. Their evolutionary flexibility allowed them to adapt to shifting marine conditions, occupying ecological niches that supported both small coastal species and larger open ocean hunters. While the reptiles of the sea captured attention with their dramatic forms and immense size, sharks represented a quieter but equally enduring presence. Their lineage had already survived multiple changes in ocean life long before dinosaurs appeared, and their streamlined bodies continued gliding through prehistoric waters alongside the reptiles that shared their domain. In this way, the shark lineage formed one of the oldest continuous threads in marine history, linking ancient oceans of the distant past with the living seas that continue to hold their descendants today. Life within the open ocean required solutions not only for hunting and movement, but also for the quiet continuation of the next generation. For reptiles whose ancestors once returned to land to lay eggs, reproduction presented a particular challenge. The vast marine environments they now inhabited offered no stable beaches or dry ground where eggs could safely develop. Over time, many marine reptiles resolved this problem through a remarkable evolutionary shift. Instead of laying eggs, numerous species began giving birth to live young directly in the water. This transformation allowed mothers to remain entirely within marine habitats without returning to land during reproduction. Fossil discoveries provide extraordinary evidence of this strategy. Some specimens preserve the delicate outlines of embryos still positioned within the body of the parent, frozen in stone after millions of years beneath ancient seas. These fossils reveal details that illuminate how birth unfolded beneath the water's surface. In several preserved examples, the developing young appear oriented tail first rather than head first. This arrangement was likely essential for survival. During the process of birth, the body of the newborn gradually emerged from the mother while still surrounded by water. A tail-first delivery ensured that the head, and therefore the lungs, remained protected inside the birth canal until the final moment. By emerging tail first, the young avoided drawing water into their lungs before they were fully free. Only once the body had completely entered the surrounding sea would the newborn lift its head and take its first breath. This subtle but crucial adaptation allowed marine reptiles to give birth safely within an environment that would otherwise threaten the survival of their offspring. The young themselves were often well developed at birth. Fossilized embryos suggest that many species entered the world already capable of swimming. Their bodies carried miniature versions of the flippers and streamlined forms that defined adult animals. Such development would have been vital within oceans filled with predators, where newborn reptiles needed the ability to move effectively almost immediately. Evidence also hints that some degree of parental care may have occurred in certain species. While the fossil record rarely preserves direct behavioral details, the relatively large size of newborn individuals suggests that mothers invested significant energy into developing their young before birth. This investment may have improved survival during the vulnerable early stages of life. In addition, certain fossil discoveries reveal groups of similarly sized individuals preserved together, suggesting that young marine reptiles may have remained near adults for a period after birth. Though the exact nature of these relationships remains uncertain, the possibility raises intriguing glimpses of social behavior within ancient marine ecosystems. Through these reproductive adaptations, marine reptiles solved one of the most difficult challenges of living permanently within the ocean. By giving birth to live young that entered the world already prepared for aquatic life, they removed the final dependence on land that once defined their ancestry. In this quiet cycle of birth beneath the waves, the next generation of marine hunters began their lives already surrounded by the vast waters that shaped the destiny of their lineage. Movement beneath the surface often occurred within a world where sight alone could not guide a hunter. Light faded quickly as depth increased, colors dissolved into muted shades, and suspended particles softened the clarity of distant shapes. In these dim and shifting conditions, marine predators relied on senses refined specifically for life within water. Many developed unusually large eyes that gathered as much available light as possible. The skulls of certain marine reptiles reveal eye sockets of remarkable size, indicating organs capable of capturing faint illumination that filtered down from above. Such sensitivity would have allowed predators to detect subtle motion within shadowed waters where prey attempted to remain unseen. Even the slightest flash of movement from a passing fish or squid could become visible through these enlarged visual systems. These eyes likely worked in combination with pupils that expanded widely in darkness, admitting more light into the retina. Within deeper regions of the sea, this ability offered a significant advantage. While smaller animals struggled to perceive their surroundings, predators equipped with heightened vision could follow silhouettes and movement patterns that others missed. Sound also traveled through water in ways very different from the air above. Vibrations passed efficiently through dense liquid, carrying information about movement across considerable distances. Marine predators probably relied on sensitive hearing structures capable of interpreting these underwater signals. Subtle disturbances produced by swimming prey may have reached the ears of hunters long before the animals themselves came into view. In addition to hearing, many aquatic creatures developed the ability to sense pressure changes or vibrations within the surrounding water. Though the exact sensory structures of ancient marine reptiles remain difficult to reconstruct in detail, modern aquatic animals provide useful comparisons. Specialized receptors along the skin can detect faint waves created by the motion of other bodies nearby. Such sensitivity allows predators to recognize the presence and direction of moving prey, even in darkness or murky water. The bodies of marine reptiles also contributed to their hunting abilities in quieter ways. Streamlined shapes reduced turbulence as they moved through water, allowing predators to approach prey with minimal disturbance. Smooth body contours helped them glide forward without producing large pressure waves that might warn nearby animals of an approaching threat. Flippers and tails worked together to maintain controlled motion, enabling sudden bursts of speed when necessary while preserving calm, nearly silent movement during the approach. A predator could drift slowly through the water column, adjusting direction with subtle strokes before launching a final rapid pursuit. These sensory adaptations combined to create hunters capable of navigating complex underwater environments. Vision detected motion in low light, hearing interpreted distant vibrations, and pressure-sensitive skin revealed subtle changes within the surrounding water. Each sense contributed information that guided the predator toward its target. Through this layered awareness of their surroundings, marine reptiles and other ocean hunters transformed the seemingly dark and silent depths into environments rich with signals. Every ripple, faint sound, and shifting shadow carried meaning, allowing predators to locate prey within the vast and often dim landscapes of prehistoric seas. Beyond the sunlit waters where many marine reptiles hunted and where plankton fueled dense food webs, the ocean gradually descended into deeper and quieter realms. As depth increased, sunlight faded until only dim traces filtered through the water above. Beneath these fading layers stretched vast regions of darkness that covered much of the planet's surface, environments that existed throughout the dinosaur age, much as they do today. The deep ocean during this time likely held ecosystems very different from the bright coastal seas and shallow inland waterways described earlier. Pressure increased steadily with depth, temperatures cooled, and light became scarce. These conditions shaped communities of animals adapted to life in dim or completely dark environments. Yet much of this hidden world remains difficult to reconstruct because the fossil record preserves only fragments of what once lived there. Many deep-sea organisms possess soft bodies that decay quickly after death. Without hard bones or shells to resist decomposition, their remains rarely survive long enough to become buried and fossilized within sediment. Even when skeletal structures are present, the vast distances from shore mean that fewer remains accumulate in places where they can later be discovered. As a result, the deep ocean of the dinosaur era remains one of the least understood habitats in prehistoric marine history. Despite this limited record, certain patterns can still be inferred from geological evidence and comparisons with modern oceans. The deep sea floor would have received a slow rain of organic material drifting down from above. Fragments of plankton, small animals, and other debris settled gradually through the water column, providing nourishment for creatures living in darkness along the seabed. Some fish and invertebrates likely evolved specialized adaptations for these conditions, including enlarged eyes capable of capturing faint light or bioluminescent signals used for communication and hunting. Though direct fossil proof remains rare, the existence of similar strategies in modern deep sea animals suggests that comparable adaptations may have appeared in ancient marine ecosystems as well. Large marine reptiles probably spent most of their time within shallower layers of the ocean where prey was more abundant. However, they may occasionally have ventured toward deeper waters while hunting, areas near continental shelves, where the seafloor drops steeply from shallow regions into deeper basins, likely formed important hunting grounds. These boundaries often concentrate marine life because nutrients rising from deeper layers meet the productivity of surface waters. Predators patrolling these zones could encounter fish and cephalopods moving between different depths, creating opportunities for successful hunts. The steep slopes of continental margins, therefore, may have served as transitional regions where animals from various levels of the ocean gathered within reach of larger hunters. Although the darkness of the deep sea conceals much of its ancient story, it formed an enormous portion of the prehistoric marine world. Beneath the well-studied shallows lay a quiet expanse of cold water and drifting particles, inhabited by creatures whose traces rarely survive the passage of geological time. Within this hidden realm, life continued its slow and patient evolution, largely unseen but still connected to the broader ocean ecosystems above. Across the immense surface of prehistoric oceans, movement rarely remained confined to a single region. Marine environments shifted constantly through currents, seasonal changes, and the drifting distribution of prey. Within this fluid landscape, many ocean animals developed the ability to travel remarkable distances, following patterns that connected distant marine habitats across the planet. Evidence suggests that marine reptiles participated in similar journeys. Fossils of certain species appear in sediments, separated by vast geographic distances, sometimes discovered on continents that were once connected by broad seaways or open ocean passages. These discoveries hint at animals capable of crossing great stretches of water during their lifetimes, linking ecosystems that might otherwise seem isolated. Such long-distance movement likely served several purposes within marine life cycles. In some cases, reptiles may have followed seasonal concentrations of prey, traveling toward regions where fish, squid, and other food sources gathered in large numbers. Ocean productivity often shifts with changing currents and temperature patterns, creating temporary zones where prey becomes especially abundant. Predators able to track these shifting opportunities would gain a steady advantage. Reproduction may have influenced these migrations as well. Certain animals could have traveled toward specific regions where environmental conditions favored the survival of newborn young. Warm coastal waters or sheltered inland seas might have provided calmer environments where vulnerable offspring could grow before venturing into deeper waters. The movement of ocean currents likely played an important role in guiding these journeys. Currents act as powerful conveyors within the sea, carrying water, nutrients, and drifting organisms across enormous distances. Marine reptiles traveling with these flowing pathways could conserve energy while covering wide expanses of ocean. By aligning their movements with prevailing currents, they may have navigated long routes between feeding grounds and breeding areas. Fossil evidence occasionally supports this possibility. Similar species appear in marine deposits located on continents that were once separated by broad ocean basins. During the dinosaur age, the arrangement of land and sea differed greatly from the modern world, yet currents still connected distant coastlines. These watery highways allowed animals capable of sustained swimming to disperse across large regions. Long distance travel required bodies suited for endurance. Streamlined shapes reduced resistance during steady swimming, while strong tails and flippers produced the propulsion needed to maintain motion over extended periods. Efficient lungs supported repeated dives and resurfacing cycles that allowed animals to move continuously through open water. Over the course of many generations, these migrations may have shaped the distribution of marine reptile populations. Groups traveling along particular ocean pathways could expand into new habitats, gradually spreading their lineage across multiple seas. The repeated movement of individuals between regions also allowed genetic diversity to flow through populations, strengthening their resilience within changing marine environments. Within the vast and shifting geography of prehistoric oceans, migration formed another quiet thread connecting distant ecosystems. Through steady travel guided by currents and the search for food or favorable conditions, marine reptiles moved across ancient seas in journeys that spanned horizons far beyond the reach of any shoreline. High above the drifting plankton and the countless smaller animals that filled the water column, the upper levels of the prehistoric ocean belonged to powerful hunters whose survival depended on a steady supply of prey. In these elevated tiers of the marine food web, space and resources were limited. Large predators rarely existed alone within their ecosystems, and their lives unfolded within a landscape shaped by competition. Fish, squid-like animals, and other mid-sized creatures formed a major source of food for many marine hunters. When several large species relied on the same prey, their territories inevitably overlapped. Within these shared hunting grounds, different predators moved through the same waters, each searching for the next opportunity to feed. Such overlap created constant tension among the largest animals of the sea. Marine reptiles with long necks, powerful jaws, or swift bodies all pursued prey within similar environments. Some relied on stealth and patience, gliding quietly through the water until the right moment arrived. Others depended on speed and sudden bursts of force to capture animals attempting to escape. Fossils occasionally preserve traces of these encounters in striking detail. Certain bones discovered within marine sediments bear the marks of deep gouges or punctures left by the teeth of large predators. These scars suggest moments when one hunter attacked another, either in direct conflict or as part of a feeding event. In some cases, the remains of marine reptiles show clear evidence that they were bitten by creatures of similar size. The spacing and shape of these marks match the teeth of other large predators known from the same fossil deposits. Such discoveries reveal that confrontations between marine hunters were not rare occurrences. The struggle for food sometimes brought powerful animals into direct contact with one another. Predation among marine reptiles themselves also appears to have taken place. Large hunters may have targeted smaller relatives that occupied nearby habitats. In the vast openness of the ocean, any animal that could be subdued represented a potential meal. When opportunities arose, even members of closely related groups might have fallen victim to stronger predators. Competition did not always end in direct conflict. Often the presence of multiple hunters shaped the behavior of each species in quieter ways. Different predators may have focused on slightly different prey, hunted at varying depths, or patrolled separate regions of the same ocean basin. These subtle divisions helped reduce direct rivalry, while still allowing multiple large species to exist within the same ecosystem. Even so, the upper levels of the marine food chain remained a place of constant challenge. Survival required strength, speed, and the ability to locate prey before rivals reached it first. The presence of other formidable hunters meant that no predator ruled the seas without encountering others capable of competing for the same resources. Within this layered struggle, the ancient ocean revealed a dynamic balance. Powerful reptiles, swift sharks, and other marine hunters moved through shared waters, each seeking its place within a complex network of pursuit and survival that defined life at the top of the prehistoric sea. Across the immense span of the dinosaur age, the oceans did not remain fixed or unchanging. Their temperatures shifted gradually, coastlines moved, and the boundaries between land and sea advanced or retreated with slow geological rhythms. These environmental changes unfolded across millions of years, shaping the conditions that marine life encountered within every generation. Ocean temperature played a central role in this long transformation. Warmer periods expanded tropical waters across broader regions of the planet, allowing marine organisms adapted to gentle climates to spread into new territories. During these intervals, the oceans likely supported particularly rich ecosystems, where warm currents encouraged the growth of plankton and other small organisms that formed the base of marine food webs. At other times, the oceans cooled slightly, altering the distribution of species that thrived in warmer conditions. Even modest shifts in temperature could influence where certain animals lived and hunted. Fish populations moved in response to changing water conditions, and predators followed these movements across expanding or contracting habitats. Sea level changes created another powerful influence on marine environments. As global temperatures and geological processes altered the volume of ocean water and the shape of continents, coastlines slowly migrated across the landscape. When sea levels rose, shallow seas expanded across low-lying land, flooding plains and valleys to create new marine environments rich with life. These waters provided ideal habitats for many marine reptiles and the prey they depended upon. When sea levels later receded, those shallow seas gradually withdrew. Regions that once held thriving marine ecosystems returned to dry land, while animals that lived there were forced to move into deeper waters or migrate toward other coastal areas. Such shifts repeatedly reorganized marine habitats across the world. These environmental changes did not occur suddenly, but unfolded through slow, persistent adjustments over immense spans of time. Marine organisms responded through movement, adaptation, or evolutionary change. Some species expanded into newly available habitats created by rising seas, while others declined as their preferred conditions disappeared. Predators, at the upper levels of the ocean food chain, felt these shifts as well. Changes in the abundance or location of prey forced large marine reptiles and other hunters to adjust their movements and behavior. Entire ecosystems reorganized as currents shifted and coastlines moved. Sediments preserved along ancient shorelines often reveal these transitions. Layers of rock record alternating environments where marine fossils appear in one period and terrestrial deposits in another. Such patterns show how the boundary between ocean and land advanced and retreated repeatedly through geological time. Within these changing conditions, marine ecosystems displayed remarkable resilience. Though species came and went, the broader structure of ocean life continued adapting to the shifting environment. Plankton populations expanded or contracted with temperature changes. Fish followed nutrient-rich waters, and larger predators adjusted their hunting ranges accordingly. The dinosaur age, therefore, unfolded against a background of constant environmental motion. Oceans warmed and cooled, shorelines shifted across continents, and ecosystems reorganized themselves in response to these slow planetary rhythms. Through these quiet yet powerful changes, the marine world remained dynamic, continually reshaped by the evolving climate of the ancient Earth. Across the immense timeline of the dinosaur age, the oceans experienced intervals when the balance of life shifted dramatically. These moments arrived when environmental pressures intensified beyond what many species could endure. Changes in climate, chemistry, and sea level occasionally combined in ways that disrupted entire ecosystems. When such disturbances spread across the planet, they triggered mass extinctions that reshaped marine life from its foundations. Extinction events did not simply erase individual species. They altered the structure of entire food webs. When large numbers of organisms disappeared, the relationships that connected predators, prey, and microscopic life collapsed as well. In ancient seas, these disruptions could ripple through every level of the ecosystem, from the smallest drifting plankton to the largest marine reptiles patrolling the upper waters. Long before the final disappearance of dinosaurs, several extinction events had already influenced ocean life. Some occurred at the boundaries between geological periods, marking moments when large portions of marine biodiversity vanished within relatively short spans of time. In the aftermath of these upheavals, the seas often appeared very different from the ecosystems that existed before. Marine reptiles illustrate this pattern clearly. Different groups rose to prominence during various intervals of the Mesozoic oceans, only to fade away when environmental conditions changed. Ichthyosaurs flourished widely during earlier stages of the era, yet their numbers declined long before the end of the Cretaceous. Other lineages expanded into the ecological roles they left behind, filling newly available spaces within marine food webs. These repeated cycles of disappearance and renewal shaped the evolutionary story of ocean predators. When one group declined, opportunities emerged for other animals to adapt and expand. Over long spans of time, the oceans witnessed successive waves of marine reptiles evolving, diversifying, and eventually giving way to new forms. The rebuilding of ecosystems after extinction events followed a gradual and complex process. Surviving species began spreading into habitats that had lost many of their former inhabitants. Populations increased as ecological competition temporarily lessened, allowing certain organisms to expand their range or explore new feeding strategies. Microscopic life played a particularly important role during these recoveries. Plankton populations could rebound quickly under favorable conditions, restoring the base of the marine food chain. Once these tiny organisms multiplied again, small fish and invertebrates returned in greater numbers. Larger predators gradually followed as the availability of prey increased. Over millions of years, the oceans repeatedly demonstrated a remarkable ability to regenerate their living systems. Though extinction events removed entire branches of life, the underlying structure of marine ecosystems slowly rebuilt itself. New lineages emerged, filling ecological roles that earlier species had once occupied. Through these cycles, the oceans remained dynamic environments shaped by both disruption and renewal. Marine reptiles appeared, thrived, and sometimes vanished, Yet the broader patterns of life continued evolving within the changing seas. Each extinction event, therefore, marked not only an ending, but also the beginning of new ecological chapters written across the waters of the ancient world. For millions of years, the oceans had followed their slow rhythms of change, currents shifting, coastlines advancing and retreating, predators and prey adjusting to the quiet pressures of evolution. Then, within a brief moment in geological time, the stability of that long world was broken by an event that altered the entire planet. A massive asteroid struck Earth roughly 66 million years ago, colliding with tremendous energy along the edge of what is now the Yucatan region. The impact released shock waves that traveled through the crust and the surrounding oceans, sending vast amounts of debris high into the atmosphere. Rock, ash, and vaporized material spread across the sky, forming a thick veil that began to circle the globe. As these particles drifted through the upper atmosphere, sunlight reaching the surface of the Earth diminished. The reduction of light had consequences that extended far beyond the land. In the oceans, where microscopic plankton depended on sunlight for energy, this sudden darkness disrupted the foundation of marine ecosystems. Plankton populations began to decline as photosynthesis slowed under the dimmed skies. Because these tiny organisms formed the base of the ocean's food chains, their reduction quickly affected the animals that fed upon them. Small fish and drifting invertebrates lost their primary source of nourishment. As their numbers fell, the consequences moved steadily upward through the marine ecosystem. Predators that relied on these smaller animals soon faced shortages of prey. The complex web of relationships that supported life in prehistoric seas began to unravel. Food chains that had persisted for millions of years weakened as each level of the ecosystem felt the effects of declining productivity. Marine reptiles, including the large predators that had dominated the oceans during the late Cretaceous, were especially vulnerable to these disruptions. Their survival depended on steady supplies of prey across wide marine regions. When the animals they hunted became scarce, maintaining the energy required for large bodies and active hunting became increasingly difficult. Within this cascading ecological crisis, many of these marine reptiles gradually disappeared. Groups that had thrived across the seas for vast stretches of time could not withstand the sudden collapse of the food networks that supported them. Alongside the dinosaurs on land, numerous ocean predators vanished from the fossil record. Other marine organisms also suffered losses, though some lineages managed to survive the upheaval. Small species with flexible diets or rapid reproduction sometimes endured the difficult conditions, eventually forming the foundation for the ecosystems that would develop afterward. The asteroid impact therefore marked not only the end of the dinosaur age on land, but also a turning point within the oceans. Entire groups of marine reptiles that once ruled prehistoric seas disappeared during this global transition. Their absence left ecological spaces that would later be filled by new forms of marine life. In the quiet aftermath of this planetary disturbance, the oceans slowly began another long cycle of recovery and transformation. Long after the great marine reptiles had vanished from the oceans, the seas entered another quiet chapter of transformation. The waters that once held mosasaurs and other ancient hunters did not remain empty. Over millions of years, new animals began exploring the same environments, carrying with them a different evolutionary heritage. These newcomers were mammals, descendants of creatures that had long lived on land. The earliest of these transitions began gradually. Certain land mammals that lived near coastlines started spending increasing amounts of time in shallow marine waters. Rivers and coastal shallows offered rich, feeding grounds filled with fish and other prey. Animals that could swim effectively gained access to new sources of food, and over long periods of time, natural selection favored bodies better suited for life in water. Among the most remarkable of these evolutionary journeys occurred within the lineage that would eventually produce whales. Early ancestors of whales began as small land mammals that walked on four legs and lived near ancient river systems. Fossils reveal that these animals slowly developed traits that allowed them to swim more efficiently. Their limbs adapted for paddling, their bodies lengthened, and their movement gradually shifted from walking to swimming. As generations passed, these transformations deepened. The hind limbs that once supported movement on land became reduced, while the tail developed powerful muscles capable of driving the body forward through water. Eventually, the tail evolved a broad horizontal fluke that produced strong propulsion with each downward stroke. With these changes, early whales fully entered marine environments, becoming some of the most successful ocean hunters of the Cenozoic era. Other mammals followed different pathways into the sea. Seals and sea lions, descendants of carnivorous land animals, also adapted to marine life. Their limbs transformed into flippers that allowed agile swimming, while their streamlined bodies reduced resistance in water. Unlike whales, many of these animals retained the ability to move across land, often returning to coastal beaches or rocky shores for rest and reproduction. These marine mammals developed physiological systems well suited for prolonged diving. Their lungs and blood chemistry allowed them to store large amounts of oxygen, enabling extended periods beneath the surface while searching for prey. Sensitive whiskers helped detect movement in the water, while keen hearing allowed communication across long distances underwater. In many ways, these mammals succeeded in establishing a permanent presence in marine environments that dinosaurs had never fully entered. Their ancestors underwent the profound anatomical transformations necessary for complete adaptation to ocean life. Flippers replaced walking limbs, streamlined bodies minimized drag, and reproductive strategies allowed young to develop without returning to land in most cases. Over time, whales, seals, and related species spread across oceans throughout the world. They filled ecological roles once occupied by earlier marine reptiles, becoming predators, grazers, and migratory travelers within the seas. Through these changes, the oceans once again demonstrated their capacity to host new evolutionary experiments. Long after the age of dinosaurs ended, mammals gradually reshaped themselves into creatures capable of mastering marine environments, continuing the long story of life, adapting to the vast and ever-changing world beneath the waves. Evolution rarely moves in sudden leaps. Instead, it follows slow pathways shaped by small changes accumulating across immense spans of time. When certain traits begin appearing within a lineage, they sometimes hint at directions that evolution might have explored further if given enough generations. Among the dinosaurs, a few species displayed features that suggest how such a journey toward the sea might have continued. Some dinosaurs had already begun experimenting with life near water. Their skulls, teeth, and limb structures reveal animals capable of hunting fish or moving comfortably through shallow channels. These traits did not transform them into true marine creatures, yet they show that certain lineages were beginning to explore environments that blended land and water. Bodies that could swim more effectively would have gained advantages in these settings. A predator, able to pursue fish beneath the surface, could access prey unavailable to strictly terrestrial hunters. Over many generations, natural selection might gradually favor individuals with features that improved swimming ability or underwater hunting. Such changes often begin subtly, Limbs used for wading might broaden slightly, producing greater force when pushing against water. Tails could become more flexible, contributing additional propulsion during swimming. The overall shape of the body might slowly shift toward a more streamlined form that reduced resistance while moving through water. If these trends continued long enough, the descendants of such animals might have begun spending increasing portions of their lives within aquatic habitats. As this shift deepened, further adaptations could have emerged. Limbs might gradually transform into paddle-like structures suited for steering. The spine could develop greater flexibility, supporting smoother swimming motion. Breathing patterns might also adapt to longer periods underwater. Enlarged lungs and changes in oxygen storage could allow extended dives while hunting fish or squid in deeper waters. Over vast evolutionary timescales, such adjustments might have produced dinosaurs whose bodies resembled those of marine reptiles that had already conquered the oceans. This possibility remains one of the intriguing what-if stories within evolutionary history. Dinosaurs demonstrated remarkable adaptability on land, developing countless forms ranging from swift predators to massive plant eaters. Some lineages even evolved feathers and eventually gave rise to birds capable of flight. Given enough time, it is possible that certain dinosaurs might also have completed the transition into fully marine lifestyles. Yet the unfolding of this potential pathway came to an abrupt end. The asteroid impact that reshaped the planet also halted the evolutionary experiments underway within dinosaur lineages. Entire groups vanished before such transformations could progress further. In the aftermath of that global disruption, the opportunity to develop truly marine dinosaurs disappeared along with the animals themselves. The oceans would later welcome new inhabitants from different evolutionary branches, but the particular story of dinosaurs exploring aquatic life ended before reaching its final possibilities. Within the fossil record, only scattered hints remain of what might have unfolded under different circumstances. These traces suggest that the evolutionary road toward the sea had begun, yet the long journey required to complete that transition was never allowed to continue. Long after the waves of the ancient seas have vanished, and the creatures that swam within them have disappeared, the record of those oceans remains quietly preserved within stone. Layer by layer, sediments that once settled on prehistoric seafloors hardened into rock, holding within them the bones, shells, and impressions of animals that lived millions of years ago. These fossils form the lasting legacy of the oceans that existed during the age of dinosaurs. Through careful study of these remains, scientists have been able to reconstruct the structure of long-vanished marine ecosystems. The skeleton of a plesiosaur reveals how its flippers moved through water, while the jaws of a pliosaur show the force with which it captured prey. Even the smallest fossil fragments can provide valuable clues. Teeth, vertebrae, and scattered bones often reveal where different species lived and how they interacted within their environment. Certain discoveries capture moments of ancient life with remarkable clarity. Stomach contents preserved inside fossilized skeletons reveal the kinds of prey marine reptiles consumed. Bite marks etched into bones hint at encounters between predators. In rare cases, entire skeletons appear almost perfectly preserved within ancient seabed sediments, allowing researchers to examine the complete structure of animals that vanished long ago. New discoveries continue to expand this understanding. Each year, paleontologists uncover fossils from marine rocks across the world, often in places that were once covered by shallow seas or ancient ocean basins. These findings add new pieces to the evolving picture of prehistoric oceans, sometimes revealing species that had never been recognized before. The tools used to study these fossils have also advanced significantly in recent decades. Technologies such as computed tomography scanning allow scientists to examine the internal structure of fossils without damaging the surrounding rock. By passing energy through a specimen and reconstructing its interior digitally, researchers can observe hidden bones, delicate features, or even the growth patterns preserved inside fossilized tissue. This approach has revealed extraordinary details about marine reptiles and other ocean animals. Internal cavities within skulls show the pathways of nerves and blood vessels. Growth rings within bones provide clues about how quickly an animal developed. Even embryos preserved within fossil skeletons can be studied in three-dimensional detail without removing them from their surrounding stone. Through these techniques, the fossil record becomes far more than a collection of ancient bones. It transforms into a window through which scientists can explore the biology and behavior of creatures that lived in oceans long before humans appeared. The study of these fossils also reminds us that the oceans have always been dynamic environments shaped by evolution, climate, and the movements of continents. The marine reptiles of the dinosaur age no longer swim through modern seas, yet their remains continue to teach us about the structure of ancient ecosystems and the processes that shaped life on Earth. Within stone layers scattered across the planet, the story of those prehistoric oceans continues to unfold, one discovery at a time. Across the immense sweep of Earth's history, the age of dinosaurs often appears as a time when a single group of animals dominated the world. Their presence filled forests, plains, and river valleys for millions of years. Giant herbivores shaped entire landscapes through their feeding, while swift predators followed their movements across ancient continents. On land, their influence became so great that entire ecosystems formed around their lives. Yet beyond the shorelines where waves met sand and stone, the oceans followed a different story. Beneath the surface of those ancient seas, another world unfolded, guided by its own evolutionary pathways. Marine environments demanded bodies built for swimming, breathing in water-filled depths, and navigating currents that stretched across entire oceans. Dinosaurs, for all their success on land, rarely crossed that boundary completely. Their bodies remained shaped by the needs of walking, running, and living beneath open skies. In the water, other reptiles answered the challenge instead. Ichthyosaurs moved through the sea with bodies shaped like living torpedoes, slicing through open water with remarkable speed. Plesiosaurs glided through ancient currents with long necks extended before them, searching for prey among fish and squid. Pliosaurs carried immense skulls and powerful jaws that dominated their hunting grounds, while later mosasaurs rose as formidable rulers of the late Cretaceous seas. Alongside these reptiles swam sharks whose ancestry reached far deeper into the past, as well as cephalopods drifting through the water with tentacles extended in quiet pursuit of prey. Vast inland seas covered portions of continents, while deeper oceans extended into shadowed realms where life continued in ways only partially revealed by the fossil record. Together, these creatures formed ecosystems every bit as complex and dramatic as those that existed on land. Predators competed for prey, migrations carried animals across immense distances, and environmental changes reshaped marine habitats through slow geological rhythms. Through all of this, the oceans remained a world apart. Even during a time when dinosaurs shaped the surface of the continents, the sea followed its own evolutionary course. Entire lineages of marine reptiles rose, flourished, and disappeared, while dinosaurs continued walking across the land above them. The ocean was not an extension of the dinosaur world, but a separate domain shaped by different biological experiments. When the Great Extinction arrived and the asteroid changed the course of life on Earth, both realms experienced transformation. Dinosaurs vanished from the land, while many marine reptiles disappeared from the sea. Yet the oceans continued evolving, welcoming new groups of animals that would eventually take their place within marine ecosystems. Today, the fossils preserved in ancient rocks allow glimpses into those vanished waters. They reveal a planet where life explored many paths at once, where the land and the sea each hosted their own extraordinary stories. And beneath every modern wave, the quiet memory of those ancient oceans still remains, reminding us that even in an age ruled by dinosaurs, the sea belonged to a different world entirely.